What makes us scared? So this one's going to be a dual review discussion to go over the latest 2 entries into the horror genre. And if you're on a limited budget, you probably want to know which one will get you the closest to peeing yourself. And I want to know, what makes you scared? Do either of these games actually do it, or are they just going to lead to more frustration, anger, and occasionally being grossed out? So for the sake of the review portion at the beginning of this, let's go over the gameplay systems. Now right away, Evil Within will remind you of Resident Evil 4. It's got an over-the-shoulder third-person camera, and the villages are full of people trying to creep towards you. Now it also has the ability to sneak around, and while welcomed, it'll quickly become useless as you'll have so much ammo that it won't matter. Plus you can run past a good chunk of the enemies. Now I have read that ammo is supposed to be scarce, and I'm playing this on the normal difficulty setting, but very rarely did I ever run out of ammo, or even get low. It's normally only at a boss battle that I needed to dump all of my ammo into the boss battle that I actually had to go look for more ammo, but typically I was maxed out on my storage. As for the gameplay mechanics in Aliens Isolation, the other horror game that just recently came out, combat is useless and used as nothing more than a way to scare the alien off temporarily. The game highly plays like Outlast in a situation where you find yourself hiding from the enemies more than anything. There are plenty of things to hide from the alien in, such as lockers, under the beds and desks, and even in the vents. Because of the nature of the game and the fact that the alien doesn't seem to want to follow any set path, you'll find yourself hiding in more lockers and looking at your motion detector than actually moving around in the game. So for gameplay mechanics, we have Evil Within, where you're tearing through your enemies after the initial no weapons level, and we have another game, Alien Isolation, where you'll spend the majority of your time hiding out. Graphics, while both games are pretty, neither game has massively impressed me. Sure, they look great in the new generation of consoles, but they definitely feel like a first generation game on the new console. You'll get a hint that these could be so much prettier, but they weren't optimized for these consoles. There were a few times I was going through and I saw the graphics and I was kind of like, really? This is the next generation of graphics? So the graphics for both games are not special, but they're not really terrible. As for the story, both games have a story that basically just sets up the adventure. Nothing that makes you sit there thinking. Playing through Evil Within, you'll come across a rather mental game in which you'll actually scratch your head confused as to what's going on, but in a good way. It's a confusing mental case of a game that takes place in an insane asylum where you're supposed to be figuring out who committed a mass murder. Think Silent Hill meets Resident Evil, and I definitely dig that style of gameplay. As for Alien Isolation, the game does a great job of making you feel like you're in the original 1970s Aliens movie. It's a great feeling, and you're tracking down what's going on the ship right after the events of the first movie. This is a great setup, but it's mostly there just as a reason as to why you have to run away from the alien. It's not terrible, but it's very cliche. You'll find yourself helping a random doctor get his medical reports. You'll then help a crazy survivor make it to the ship. And oh no, one of your crew is injured and you'll need to brave a tight space with the alien on your tail to get the medical kit. Like I said, you'll see it all coming from a mile away. Replayability is simple for both. It's collectibles and higher difficulties. There's also a survivor mode in Alien Isolation, but it's more for a quick fun run instead of anything that'll keep you glued to it for a while. So why am I explaining both of the latest horror titles to you? And what did these games make me think about? Well, first off, how is it scary? What am I being scared of? Evil Within is more about the gross out factor than anything. You'll find yourself running through pools of blood, monsters' heads splitting open and dripping on the floor, horrific scenes of what appears to be satanic rituals and people being tortured, chained monsters that you just know are gonna break free. But all of this, it didn't scare me. Sure, it created a creepy atmosphere, and sitting there in the dark, it'll make you feel a little uneasy. But what were the parts that filled me with adrenaline? The parts that got me excited about the game? You know, the ones that got your blood pumping because you're actually scared? Well, those weren't the supposedly scary moments. Those were the boss fights where I was actually running low on ammo and worrying if I'd have enough to finish off the boss. Those are the moments where they would hit me with countless enemies and I had no idea when it would end, and I found myself trying to outrun them. But is this scary now? Being overwhelmed and running out of ammo? That's what constitutes as a scary game now? What about Alien Isolation? The tense moments in that game were worrying that the alien was going to turn around because I had no way to defend myself. But that didn't make me scared of the alien. That didn't make me want to turn the game off because I was so scared that I might pee myself. What I was scared of was dying against an enemy that I couldn't fight against and having to go back a ton of time in this level. I was scared that by hiding in a locker for 10 minutes only to get out and die with no other option but to die, I would then have to go back 15 minutes to the latest checkpoint. I was basically scared that I would have to do it all again, not scared of the alien itself. So my question is, what is really scary about these games now? Bloody scenes filled with creepy lighting? An enemy that you literally can't defeat? or just having to backtrack farther than you're happy about. Having to redo a segment over and over because you can't seem to figure it out. What is really scaring you about these games at this point? Sure, both games are filled with jump moments, but I don't really consider those scary moments in a game. That's just your natural human response. Do you not jump from listening to music when somebody taps on your shoulder? Or how about when you walk into a room and there's something there that you weren't expecting? Maybe a coat hanging on a coat hanger. It's just a human response, and in my opinion, fake fear. A scary game needs to be scary and creepy like old school Silent Hill or the first Resident Evil. Now maybe everything that I've said here is a pointless discussion. I mean, back then, gore and such weren't even allowed on TV. But if you watch the pilot for The Walking Dead Season 5, then you can see people getting their throats slit. Maybe what I want from a horror game cannot be achieved anymore because we're too conditioned to gore and gross factors and creepy atmospheres. Maybe the only thing that you can get now are cheap jump scares. And maybe that's why games like Alien Isolation and Evil Within and other titles such as Outlast and Slender are doing so well, because it's all about that cheap jump scare. What is your opinion? Let me know in the comments down below what you find to be truly scary, and let me know if you're scared by these styles of games anymore, or do you just find yourself kind of grossed out by the weird noises and pools of blood in games like Evil Within? This is Benny for Eligible Monster, and I'll see you guys next time right here at the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel because there will be more videos just like this coming out quite a bit.